Is New York Islanders winger Simon Holmstrom ready to take over a spot in the top six? We're going to talk about that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We've got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it's great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. So, one thing everydayers know we've talked about a lot over the course of the year, all off season, last season as well, is the Islanders' lack of top six forwards. Last year, the Islanders kind of had four forwards who were legitimate top six guys in their lineup. You had Matthew Barzal, Bo Horvat, Brock Nelson, and Kyle Palmieri. And I was kind of borderline on Palmieri at the start of the year, but by the end of the year, he stayed healthy. He put up 30 goals. I am including Kyle Palmieri as a legitimate top six forward. And, you know, one of the things we said was they need to get more help to get 5 or preferably 6 legitimate top six forwards. And that would be one way to get this team to the next level of its development or contention. You know, if you want to go from being a fringe playoff team to a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, one thing you're going to need is enough offensive firepower to get that done. And if you only have 4 forwards who are legitimate top 6 guys, you know, you're playing with Hudson Fasching, Casey Cizikas, you know, Simon Holmstrom last year, Anders Lee, who at this point in his career, I feel is much more better suited to bottom 6 minutes. You don't want guys like that to be the permanent top 6 guys. And this is something the Islanders have been doing for a while. You know, putting Leo Komarov. And again, no offense to any of these players. They're all useful, talented NHL players, but they're not legitimate top 6 guys. So they added Anthony Duclair in the offseason. That is definitely a top 6 guy. And, you know, they had Pierre Engvall for a while. I didn't mention him, but again, Engvall's game, much better suited to the bottom 6. At the end of the year, Patrick Roy, well, let's put it this way. To start training camp, Patrick Roy has Simon Holmstrom plugged in to what will be the second line with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri. And again, Roy indicated Anthony Duclair going to start with Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal. Maxim Siplakov was acquired in order to eventually, hopefully, fit in on that second line. But the question is, How long will it take him to adjust to life in the NHL to the point where you can count on him as a legitimate top 6 forward? And I would have to say that my answer would be it may take a little while. And while maybe by the second half of the season or for the stretch drive to block off, he may have the ultimate, the most upside of any player that is expected to be on the opening night roster. He may not be 100% ready on game one to assume that. And look, I know he made some really nice plays in the preseason opener. I love the assist he made. I love the open ice hit he made. I didn't love the giveaway, but again, it's still preseason. It's just one game. And if you want a top 6 forward, look, Casey Cizikas can give you the occasional wow moment playing in the top 6. He's got a little burst of speed, but again, it's not something he can provide on a permanent game in and game out basis to provide the offense that you really want to see. So one guy that Patrick Waugh thinks can do it is Simon Holmstrom. And after practice on Monday, here's what Waugh said. He's got a lot of talent, a lot of skills. It was nothing related to talent or skills that held him back. It was just the compete level. We talked about it, and it's funny because you guys mentioned to me after the preseason game how much you saw the competitive level he had. That's exactly what I'm looking for from him. Holmstrom had an empty net goal, as we discussed on yesterday's show, had 2 shots on goal, recorded a hit, which is not something that has been part of his game. Had 2 block shots, also not something we saw a lot from him. Saw almost 2 minutes on the power play and was on the ice for a little more than 15 minutes over the course of the game. And look, the Islanders drafted Simon Holmstrom in the first round back in 2019. Hard to believe it's been 4 years. You don't take a guy in the first round, for the most part, to be a third or fourth line forward. And part of the reason that Holmstrom has not been more productive, he had 6 goals in 50 games in his rookie season, 15 goals in 75 games last year. 5 of those were shorthanded goals, and, he also faded down the stretch. Kind of ran out of gas once we got to March and April. He seems to lack confidence in himself offensively. We have seen in fits and starts the occasional wow shot. We have seen him make plays that just make you go, hey, look at what Simon Holmstrom can do. Last year, as a rookie, he had only 39 shots on goal in 50 games. Last year, he had 72 shots on goal in 75 games. So he's almost a shot on goal per game guy, up from, 4/5 of a shot on goal. But here's the thing. In 125 career NHL games, his shooting percentage is 18.9. That is impressive. It's not that the talent isn't there. It really comes down to A, believing in yourself, being confident, having that compete level, being a little more physical. I mean, let's face it. Simon Holmstrom had 19 hits in 75 games. That's a week for Cal Clutterbuck. Maybe 3 games, Cal Clutterbuck can give you 15 to 20 hits. Holmstrom, I think the ability is there. but he's got a lot to prove. And here in the preseason and in training camp, this is his chance to show what he's capable of doing. And we'll see. Here, another quote from Patrick Waugh. I said to Homer, that's Holmstrom, you might not like me today, but you're going to love me down the road. That's how I see it. I'm pushing on details, and I'm pushing on them, and I hope that eventually the game is going to get easier for him and for us. So let's see whether or not Simon Holmstrom can take that step and be plugged in maybe to the second line, at least to start the season. He has a lot to prove. I think the raw ability, the talent is there. But having the talent and then getting it done on a consistent basis, not always the same thing. So we'll see. This is sort of an extended audition for Simon Holmstrom. He certainly showed signs of improvement on Sunday night against the Devils. Now he's got to show whether or not he plays in the next preseason game. He probably won't. He'll probably play every other game, although certain guys like Maxim Siplakov, I would like to see play in 5 or 6 of the preseason games out of 6, just because you want to see them get more ice time. Maybe Holmstrom should play 4 or 5 of those games, again, just to give him more opportunities to show what he could do. We'll see who ends up on the second line to start the season and whether Holmstrom can show what he can do. We've got a lot more to get to on today's show. Let's talk a little bit about the backup goalie situation, because if Ilya Sorokin is not ready to start the season, who's going to be the backup? There's a few candidates out there. We'll break down that race. Plus, Islanders, Rangers tonight, Madison Square Garden. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, and it's kind of fitting, a player who played for both the Rangers and the Islanders. He was an Islander in 2019-2020, got off to a really hot start and kind of cooled off. Let's see if you can guess who this center is. We've got that and a whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you could check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Now, there's so much to bet on. This is an exciting time of year on the sports calendar. Check out all the latest odds. You got baseball season winding down, pennant races heating up. You got college and pro football active. You got preseason hockey and hockey future. So Islander fans, check out the odds on the Islanders. So much to check out at FanDuel. So head on over to FanDuel.com to get that $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. FanDuel.com, FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So the backup goalie situation. Obviously, if everybody's healthy, we know it's Ilya Sorokin backed up by Semyon Varlamov. But we also know that at least as of right now, Ilya Sorokin is not practicing. He's not ready to go just yet. And after the offseason back surgery, which we did eventually find out about, we don't know when he'll be ready. Now, Lou Lamoriello kind of said, hey, we don't anticipate him missing time in the regular season, but he left it wide open. We're going to leave it up to the trainers and the doctors. Okay. last night, or Sunday night, I should say, we saw two of the candidates to be the backup goalie if Sorokin is not ready to start the season on time. We saw Marcus Hogberg, and then we saw Jakub Skarek. And I would have to say, Hogberg is probably the leading candidate, the favorite, to be the backup goalie if Sorokin is not ready to start the season. I mean, let's face it. Lou Lamoriello signed Hogberg, A, because he knew Sorokin was having back issues, even though he didn't tell us that. But B, he hired him and signed him to prevent a reoccurrence of what happened last year, where Semyon Varlamov got hurt. He missed, 2-3 weeks, and Ilya Sorokin ended up having to play, 12, 13, 14 games in a row, starting them because the Islanders just did not have confidence in Ken Appleby, did not have confidence in Jakub Skarek. They just did not feel like they could trust any of the depth goalies in the system. So Lou Lamoriello goes out and adds an experienced NHL goalie in Hogberg. But you also have some other players. Skarek looked good in his half of a game against the Devils. Again, he was barely tested, didn't have to do much. That's a credit to the defense and to the team. But at the same time, one good half of a preseason game does not immediately change how I feel about a player. It's a positive. It's a step in the right direction. But you're not going to sit there and now say after 30 minutes and 35 seconds of preseason action, yeah, Jakub Skarek, he's the guy if Sorokin isn't ready to start the season. Hogberg, to me, is the number one candidate. If I had to go to a second candidate, maybe it's Keith Kinkaid. And we haven't seen Kinkaid yet, so we don't know, what is up with him. But, maybe Keith Kinkaid still has something in the tank, and maybe he's able to go out there and show you what he could do. We'll see. We'll see. But as of right now, I would say that if Hogberg isn't going to make it, Keith Kinkaid is probably the next guy in line. And then you've got sort of the younger guys, the prospects. Henrik Tikkanen, 6'9". He's 20. He'll be 24 years old in 5 days. Is he a prospect? I hope we'll get to see him and Tristan Lennox in at least one part of a preseason game. And, to me, it'll be interesting to see tonight against the New York Rangers which goalie besides Semyon Varlamov gets to play. Do we see Lennox or Tikkanen? Do we see Hogberg again? Do we see Kinkaid? It'll be interesting, to say the least. But these are your candidates. Now, I don't think that Lennox or Tikkanen, as much as, people have been impressed with what Tikkanen did in rookie camp, I don't think that the coaching staff and Lou Lamoriello, I don't think Patrick Waugh and Lou Lamoriello are ready to trust Tikkanen or Lennox just yet. And they would have to really sparkle in training camp and in preseason to get that shot. So, in my mind, Marcus Hogberg, Keith Kinkaid, those are the two guys. And Kinkaid, not even guaranteed a contract at this point. He's on the PTO. I get the feeling Kincaid may end up starting the season in Bridgeport and then may be either sent to the ECHL or be released if, Sorokin is 100% healthy and Hogberg is returned to the NHL team. But overall, to me, it would be Hogberg, Kincaid, Tikkanen, Lennox as the pecking order as to who I believe would be the most likely to least likely to be that initial backup if Ilya Sorokin is not ready to start the season on time. We'll see. It'll be interesting, and it's one of those things that I'm definitely going to be watching for over the course of the rest of the preseason. Plenty to look at. Got to look at the penalty kill and the power play and the line combinations and the goaltending. So we'll keep an eye open, and we'll talk everydayers. We'll talk more about it on Wednesday's show when we recap this game against the New York Rangers. We have got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk a little bit about the meetup with the Rangers at Madison Square Garden tonight as the Islanders embark on their second preseason game. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find Locked On NHL, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Islanders, Rangers, tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Going to be on MSG Network, so if you get that, you can certainly watch the game. And that is definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing. Look, yeah, it's preseason. I don't think we have any illusions about that. But it is always a little extra juice when the Islanders and the Rangers get together. And, both teams won their first preseason game, and it was a 3-2 win for the Rangers, a 4 over Boston, a 4-2 win for the Islanders. And, the question kind of becomes, who do we expect to see? So, the Rangers did not play Igor Shesterkin at all. You had Louis Domingue and Dylan Garand kind of splitting the 30 minutes roughly each in goal. Domingue only gave up 1 goal. Garand gave up 2. But at the end of the day, the Rangers they both gave up 1 goal. My mistake. But at the end of the day, the Rangers end up with the W. Does that mean we see Igor Shesterkin and maybe Jonathan Quick? I think we'll definitely see one of them at some point tonight. And again, I think we see Semyon Varlamov, and the big question is going to be, who's going to be the next goalie? I think we see Varley. I think we see Kincaid, knowing the way the Islanders tend to do things. And the other thing I'm really going to be looking at, I hope Siplakov plays again, because I want him to get as much of an opportunity as possible. I think we'll see Matt Martin play tonight. I also think that we'll get our very first look tonight at Anthony Duclair. And, Bo Horvat, Anthony Duclair, and Matthew Barzal, none of them played in that first preseason game against the New Jersey Devils. I want to see that line. That is going to be a major part of my focus in this game. I want to see who the other goalie is besides Varley. I want to see Siplakov again, and I want to see how that top line functions for the Islanders in this game, because it is important to get them out there, to develop chemistry, to be in game situations, and to get this top unit as prepared as possible for the start of the regular season. And always, all year this year in the preseason, and obviously once the regular season starts, I want to keep an eye on this penalty kill, this more aggressive penalty kill. And, Tommy Albaline is putting this new system in. It's similar to what they ran under Barry Trotz everydayers. We talked about it on yesterday's show. Check that out. But I want to see the PK as well. Always important to see what it can do, because it's got to be better if this team is going to be better. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And Sunday was the 37th birthday of former Islanders forward Derek Brassard, the Hull, Quebec native, first-round pick, 6th overall by the Blue Jackets in 2006, made his NHL debut with Columbus in 2007-2008, joined the Rangers in 2012-2013, then played for Ottawa, Pittsburgh, Florida, Colorado, joined the Islanders for the 2019-20 season, then went on to play for the Coyotes, the Flyers, the Oilers, and the Senators before hanging up his skates after the 2022-2023 campaign. Derek Brassard played in 1,013 NHL games, 215 goals, 545 points, 465 penalty minutes, add 25 goals and 68 points in 118 Stanley Cup playoff games. And Brassard, he was one of those guys who could play top 6 minutes and could also, do other things as well, as far as, not only providing offense. He had a productive year for the Islanders, got off to a red-hot start, and then kind of cooled off as the year progressed. One of his better games as an Islander, November 13th, 2019, the Islanders hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Frederik Andersen in goal for Toronto. Varley in goal for the Islanders. And in this game, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Derek Brassard sets up Anthony Beauvillier for a power play goal in the final minute of the first period. That gave the Islanders a 2-0 lead. Then 2 goals by Toronto in the second period tied it. And Brassard sets up Beauvillier at even strength to give the Islanders a 3-2 lead after 40 minutes. Brock Nelson, the other assist. And in the third period, again, on the power play, Derek Brassard, our Islanders' birthday of the day, scores. Matthew Barzal and Ryan Pollock, the assists at 8:07. An empty net goal by Casey Cizikas gave the Islanders a 5-2 lead. And then 2 goals in the last 2 minutes. One by Justin Holl and one by John Tavares made it 5-4, but the Islanders held on. For Derek Brassard, he had a goal, 2 assists. That's a 3-point night. His goal came on the power play, and he had 5 shots on goal, which tied him with Anthony Beauvillier for the team lead. 23 saves by Varley. Derek Brassard, who just hung up his skates a year ago, he is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we're back tomorrow. We're back on our full Monday through Friday schedule now, and we'll have our key takeaways from tonight's game against the Rangers, so make sure you join us for that. And again, I'm live tweeting during every Islanders game, so check out my live tweets during this Rangers game tonight. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.